Thank you, Matthew and Mike. Welcome. I'm the Reverend Randy Partain, minister at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland, and I welcome you into this space that probably has a lot of complicated emotions, like the music we've been listening to. I guess in jazz there are no wrong notes, it's just a matter of what you do with them, and it's the same way with our emotions. There aren't bad emotions, it's just a matter of what we might do with them. And in these times of grief, we also are here to celebrate. We might feel sadness at a loss, and also a deep joy at what a relationship has brought to us. And so we create for one another a container in this space for all of that. We're going to hear some reflections about Jim Davis's life today. And you'll have an opportunity afterward to share some refreshments downstairs and to share your own memories and reflections about what Jim's life may have meant to you and how you will carry forward a bit of his legacy. But we are here together because Jim Davis has died. He died peacefully at home at the age of 93. A full, rich life that we're going to hear a little bit about today, but we can't capture the fullness of it in just a little bit of time spent together. So our hope is that this is the beginning of a way of carrying forward Jim's life and legacy in our own lives in the various ways that we might do so. In Unitarian Universalist spaces, we light a chalice to indicate that we are creating sacred space together. And I'm going to invite you to turn in the gray hymnal in front of you to a reading which is number 468 toward the back of the hymnal. I don't know what all of your faith traditions are, but Unitarian Universalists notoriously hate being told what to say. So I invite you to read along, not in the spirit of being told what to say, but in the spirit of letting one another hear your voices and being able to hear the voices of each other in this space, so that we know that we are together holding one another in care and in celebration during this time. I'll read the initial part, and I'll invite you to read the part in italics. We need one another when we would mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. We are going to sing together in that same book, hymn number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together. I'll say just a few words about Jim and he and Marcia's relationship with this community, and then I'll invite some family members to share some deeper stories, their reminiscences, their learnings. But one of the things that struck me about hearing all of the things that Jim did and the connections in this community are a sense of questioning and curiosity. There was an ability to continue examining some things that Jim might have believed and to refine those beliefs, to keep questioning and seeking answers to big questions without holding on to those answers very tightly. He and Marcia came from different religious backgrounds, and they didn't necessarily want to return to some of the communities that they had experienced in their younger years. But in this community, they found a place where they could continue seeking and continue questioning together, to be connected. And I think about the lyrics that we just sang. There's a grounding and anchoring in something that allows people to continue that journey of seeking, that curiosity, that questioning. And I think the grounding in the love of a community, in the love of family and friends, is a thing that Jim and Marcia held with certainty. They were able to rely with confidence on the relationships that they had built, and that allowed some of the questioning of big ideas to be easier, because the things that mattered most were the human relationships that were built. And so I hope that as we listen to stories of Jim's life, that we too might think about those relationships that we hold most important, those ties and connections that we might strengthen so that we can continue to engage with curiosity the big questions of life, to continue to be seekers, to continue to hold on to our convictions lightly so that we might continue to grow and learn and evolve. And maybe at this time, as we hear some more music by Duke Ellington, we'll take some moments to reflect on Jim's influence in our lives, our own memories, the stories that we might want to carry forward. And then Paul will come forward to share some remembrances after we hear Come Sunday.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for traveling to join us here today for the celebration of life for my father, James Davis. We really appreciate you joining us today. I know many of you traveled quite far to join us, and extended family and many old friends joining us here today. We really appreciate it. It's a tribute to the friendships that my father had that were very, very long-lasting, and I recognize and have greeted this morning even some old friends from my dad's Shaker High School days, Shaker Heights High School. So thank you so much for coming, and also thank you, Mike and Matthew, for the beautiful music. Music was always in my parents' house, and one of many themes regarding my parents and my father in particular was just the legacy of appreciating music that is so frequently in our lives. So thank you. The music has been beautiful. And forgive me for reading some of my comments, but it's the best way I'm going to remember everything that I'd like to say. But I've been thinking a lot about my parents as they have both passed away in the past 2 years. My mother, Marcia, in rather unexpected health circumstances at 85, and my father, James, at 93, on a much more gradual path to the end of his life at 93. He passed away just recently in May. And thankfully, my mom and dad were clear of mind until really their last days, which was a blessing for all of us to be able to communicate with them. As Kim and I and our families continue to visit our parents' home and the gardens that they loved so much, I'm struck that the most of it and their possessions will soon be gone, possibly passed along to another family, and their home will possibly pass to another family, and they enjoyed living there for 35 years. They loved their riverside property so much, and their more rural country neighbors. Chagrin Falls possibly surpassed Cleveland in their loyal outlook on culture, the arts, and opportunities to experience theater and music. Their Hillbrook Lane home will be a frequent and lifelong memory for us, as it seemed to embody so much of my parents' spirit. The sheer steadfastness of their life experiences is amazing to me, and their time in one place, their Hillbrook Lane home, was a foundation of support for me and Kim over our entire lives. Turning more to my dad's life, his was one of steady, determined, independent thinking, and his thoughts, values, and teachings ring in my ears almost every day. Since he has passed. My dad was an optimist, idealist in many ways, and pragmatic thinker. Intellectual rigor and pursuits of learning about the world were part of his daily life into his 90s. He seemed to balance this sharing many, many books with family, particularly his brother Charles, and debating ideas with other lifelong friends. He was active in a monthly book group for over 60 years and continued to attend long after he lost his sight. I was just traveling in Spain with my family, and every day there was an experience that reminded me of the experiences of my parents. The Picasso Museum reminded me of their love for the Cleveland Museum of Art and museums in countries around the world that they visited. A live flamenco dance and guitar show reminded me of their love for theater, the Cleveland Orchestra, and live music everywhere. The Sagrada Familia reminded me of their travels to so many countries in Europe. Their travels ranged from China, France, and India to Costa Rica. What remains with us for the rest of our lives are my father's teachings words of wisdom and guidance. One item is the poem Desiderata by Max Ehrmann, which was meaningful to my father. It hung on his home office wall for as long as I can remember, and we ask our son Henry to read it. Thank you.
Go placidly, amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself to others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture the strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. With all its shams, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My father was in the high school band, and as my brother said, loved jazz. And so some of the music you'll hear today from Stan Getz, Duke Ellington, Miles Davis is a tribute to that love. So forgive my laptop. But again, like my brother, I want to make sure to capture some thoughts. And as my brother said, my dad lived a remarkable life, 93 years, born in 1930, just after the crash, and all the way up until May of 2024. That was a pretty good run. So I'd like to share a few reflections about my dad today, and start out with a quote from James Stovall, who said, "Education is a lifelong journey whose destination expands beyond as you travel." I think this quote captures my dad's experience, his passion for education and lifelong learning. It was a steady theme his whole life, and he was a serious student in high school, graduating with honors, and then he studied philosophy at Amherst and became interested in government and enlisted in the military service in the Korean War. And he went on to get a law degree from Harvard Law School. But he also believed in the school of life as a great teacher. He studied languages, and he was serious about that. He spoke French and Spanish and German and many others. And I think that the reason he loved education was not just his thirst for learning, but that it opened doors and pathways in life. So he read hundreds of books over his lifetime, and if you've ever visited our home, you'll see his vast book collection there. He claimed to have read every one. I mean, there are thousands of books. He liked to read about government and sociology, economics, art, nature, poetry, and then he tried to follow the continuing flow of information by newspaper and radio, and I even remember him tinkering with a shortwave radio in our living room. And it wasn't unusual to see newspapers in our house from different countries and different languages. He had a library card, and he wasn't afraid to use it. When my parents reached their 50th wedding anniversary, my brother and I paid tribute to him by planting a flowering tree at the Chagrin Falls Public Library garden. That place was meaningful to him, and that's how we marked that milestone of marriage. He was reflecting inward and sometimes was a man of few words. He always had his nose in a book, but he was really always learning and looking out into the world to try to take on new perspectives. He used all that knowledge in his legal career. He practiced law in Cleveland his entire life before retiring, and he was actively involved in community efforts, like stopping a highway from being built through the Shaker Lakes Nature Center lands. And he tried to revise legal pathways to help people. And I'm sure so many things to touch on, and my uncle, who's also a lawyer, is going to touch on his career. So I'd just like to say some words about my dad as a father. He had a zest for education that carried into his role as a dad and grandfather. He, with my mom, was my first teacher, and I'm forever grateful for the time that he devoted to us. My dad taught me how to throw a baseball and change a tire, speak Spanish, and recognize that women had equal standing in the working world to men. He taught me the thrill of skiing down snowy slopes and understand the importance of family. He cared about community and that volunteering for a cause you cared about was important. He liked a healthy debate, but I was smart enough to not take on many arguments with him. He taught us to strive for higher education at college and beyond. He loved chocolate, Hershey's, chocolate bars, and to try to eat a fancy dessert even if it wasn't on his heart-healthy diet. He taught me to be self-reliant, but also help others along the way. He opened my eyes to the wider world and our place in it. And in this complicated world, I'm glad that my brother and I had a father who was involved in our lives and who had strong hopes for our future. And lastly, just a word on education and how my dad worked to open educational opportunities for other people. My father and mother were involved in the Cleveland International Program, which brought working professionals to the U.S. To live and learn for 6 months to a year. And so I grew up with people in my house, our house, from Costa Rica and Ghana, the Netherlands, Germany, Russia. I'm sure I'm leaving out some places, but throughout my childhood and into my young adulthood, there were people at our dinner table from another place. As an early driver, I broke down with Juliana from Peru in the car, and she was still mastering English, and I was still mastering driving, and it was a hot mess. But at many points of my life, I remember sharing experiences with people with different perspectives. And I also remember grocery shopping with somebody from another country, Vladimir, who was overwhelmed with the choices we had in our grocery store. And I was forever humbled by that, because I had had a different experience. Both my parents were profoundly committed to international understanding through friendship, person-to-person, cross-cultural exchange. And I think that will leave a lasting impression on me. So in closing, if my father were here today, especially for the grandchildren in the room, he'd say, read a book, invite somebody over for dinner from another part of the world or across the street, learn a different perspective, and never stop learning. Love you, Dad. Thanks.
I'm going to read a passage from Walden by Henry David Thoreau. Live in each season as it passes. Breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influence of the earth.
One of the readings that we shared together at Marcia's celebration of life is number 720 at the back of that gray hymnal. It's also kind of a responsive thing, and so I invite you to participate along as we did before. I'll let you have the italics text, and I'll read the other. In the rising of the sun, and in its going down, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. As Carys comes forward to share Raindrop Rhapsody, I'll just remark that these ideas of people being a part of us is really a piece of our faith tradition. Whatever we might believe about a soul, whatever we might believe about an afterlife, we recognize that it is true that our memories and our relationships with our departed continue on, even if they take a different form than they might once have had. And so with that in mind, thank you for sharing some more music with us, Carys.
I want to thank Kim and Paul for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about the man whom I was privileged to call my friend for over 50 years. I knew Jim as a man who was devoted to his wife, Marcia, proud of Kim, proud of Paul, pleased that Paul married Michelle and that Kim married Brandon, and delighted with his grandchildren, Kira, Carys, Henry, and Ben. It's a long list of names, but they were so, so important to him. He was certainly a good friend, whether we were playing bad golf on a beautiful day or arguing about politics, history, or the stock market. He was a fine companion. He was a reliable, helpful friend during difficult times, and conversely, was very happy when his friends enjoyed success and good fortune. He accomplished many things professionally. Kim's mentioned one. Many of those have been highlighted in the deservedly glowing obituaries recently written about him. But what I particularly remember was the enthusiasm and dedication with which he undertook his role as law director of the city of Cleveland. In 1975, Jim was appointed to that position by then Mayor Ralph Perk. From what I could see then, and from what others said, he galvanized that office. The first thing he did was hire some new talent. Most notably, he appointed as his office manager an African-American woman who shared his intolerance of mediocrity. And together, they made that office hum. I later learned during his tenure, he was the prime mover in setting up the area's regional transit authority, directed the city's preparation of gun control legislation, and led a fight against certain monopolistic situations that he believed were unfair to the people of Cleveland. The high opinion Mayor Perk had of Jim's work was evident when Jim retired. The mayor didn't just issue a press release saying the usual complimentary things. He promulgated a proclamation. The proclamation stated that as law director, Jim had demonstrated, quote, unswerving dedication to the principles and spirit of the law on behalf of the city and its citizens. It also described him as a man of integrity, a man of high principles, a champion of civic morality, a credit to the legal profession, and the epitome of a fine lawyer, combining the highest skills of both solicitor and barrister. Then Mayor Perk proclaimed the day of Jim's retirement, which is April 30th, 1976, is James Davis Day, and further said, I invite his many friends and admirers to join me in this tribute and expression of deep esteem for a man whose friendship is one of my treasured possessions. It speaks volumes about Jim that, as I say, I know him for over 50 years, but only learned about this proclamation from Paul earlier in the week. What I do remember is that when he resigned, the Cleveland Plain Dealer wrote an editorial commending him for his fine service. Jim went on into private practice, accomplished more notable things professionally, continued to read voraciously, played tennis into his 80s, and rented a home in Venice, Florida for 4 months a year at which he and Marcia generously hosted many of us. But of course, our bodies betray us as we grow older. In Jim's mid-80s, his back gave out, so tennis in Florida ceased to be an option. Then his sight faded, and eventually he needed someone to read to him. Then he lost, we all lost, his beloved wife, Marcia. He accepted those limitations and losses stoically to the end of his days. His was a brave and dignified exit from an honorable and productive life. May he rest in peace.
I invite you to rise again in body or spirit as we sing together. Hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. We have heard but a few ripples that Jim's life leaves behind. And maybe we will all take something different away from this time of remembrance. Maybe we will take away from it a commitment to continue learning. Maybe we will take away from it a realization that our lives are impacted by people that we may never meet. Lives like Jim's, whom we are blessed by, but others. And maybe our lives are blessing other people who will never know our names or realize that we have done something that makes a difference for them. I don't know why anyone does what they do, but it sounds from the remembrances that we have heard today that Jim did all that he did out of a passion for human beings, for human life, a care for the world, and a desire to do what he could to make it a better place. And so whatever it is that we carry forward from Jim's life, may it inspire us to do the same. We conclude our time together extinguishing our chalice with words that we say every week, every Sunday. I invite you to read along with me the words that are in your order of service for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. There are refreshments downstairs, and the space has been prepared for you to continue sharing your stories and your memories and what you'll be carrying forward from Jim's life. And so I invite you downstairs to continue our celebration of Jim's life and legacy.